Hello guys and welcome back to Logic Language Learning. So this is a video about the use of the verb être as an auxiliary. Okay, so can we just stress, we know what an auxiliary is. It's when it's not the main verb. It's when we're using the verb to be and then another verb. So what this is really to cover is it's all very well and good when you learn one thing. Right, I can do this, I can do être verbs in the past, I can do je suis allé, I can do that. And then you go on to do other things like passives in the past, and then you find yourself slipping in between the two. And then you occasionally have verbal expressions in English that in French we would use to be, you know, and then we have verbs where you can have a verb doing something, but you can also have an adjective with it. So it's just to basically clean things up. Okay, it's a nice clean up verb. Video. We like things nice and clean. Okay, so before we begin, let's really make a really obvious point. When your mouth, because as great as it is that I get all these lovely comments from you saying, oh Luke, your methods have made it so easy for me to understand the subjunctive or the imperfect, and I want you to think of the methods. I don't want you to think in English. There's a fly, which is really annoying me. I don't want you to think in English, I'd like you to think in the methods. Because what's great... Sorry, any Buddhists, but that needed to go. What's really important is that the methods don't rely on English. So when you're thinking re, ra, ron for the future, or you're thinking a for the imperfect, or you're thinking for the past, notice these methods aren't using English words to help you find the tenses. They are using sound patterns and ideas and mind mapping to help you find what you need. So this is really important for you to keep this going. But what you then need to do is get to the stage where you're coming up with the ideas yourself. And what I've really noticed this week teaching is that there are a lot of you now, and it's great, that your mouth is coming up with the suggestions, and you're not coming out with junk, you're coming out with good French, but you're coming out with stuff in the wrong tense, or you're mixing things up, which is what we call the intermediate sort of fudge. It's when your head can hear different voices, so you know you've got something to do with one thing, and you go, oh yes, I've heard this, and you zoom on down that corridor. So basically the shortcut to this is make sure that you've said all the versions. Make sure if you come out with a sentence and your mouth, and I must do a video on this, I really am going to do a video just on this learning technique, is when your mouth has said something correctly, but you said one time, you got it wrong once, that means in your brain you've had an equal sort of exposure to the bad way and the correct way. We don't want that. We want your brain to be hearing the right way more. So as dumb as this sounds, when you've got something correct, do please just say it the right way again and get it in your mouth, okay? And get it in your mouth so that your mouth has heard, your ears have heard the correct version. Otherwise, you're only ever 50-50 and you're still pulled. Right, so let's quickly clean up what we're talking about today, which is when we can use be. And that is pretty much divided into the categories I gave us at the beginning. Okay, so let's have a quick look. So the first thing is to remind you that we have the verbs of motion. Now I hate and despise that expression because backflip is a motion, jumping is a motion, running is definitely a motion. Well, unless I'm doing it, it's not a lot of motion if I'm doing it. So the fact is, if you are looking at these verbs, place your hands here, move yourself up and down, move yourself in the space. They are verbs where we are running around the space, aren't we? So go up, go down, go out, come back, leave, stay, remain is curiously one as well. Pass if you pass in front, be born, be die, the very first thing we do, the very last thing we do. Those kind of verbs. Yeah, je suis arrivé, je suis allé, je suis monté, je suis descendu, je suis parti, je suis entré, je suis sorti, je suis rentré. Je suis passé, je suis arrivé, je suis allé, je suis mort, elle est morte, feminine, je suis né, all of those ones, okay? So they are still abiding by our crucial rule, which is if we are talking in French and, you know, and we say a past, we always have a word in the middle, we always have an auxiliary in the middle. Yep, I spoke, j'ai parlé, we need to have the have. I went, je suis allé. So you've got to remember I need that verb in the middle. Okay, you must have that. Okay, so that doesn't mean to say that we can't do other things with those verbs like j'allais, I was going, or the had tenses with the same thing. So j'étais allé, j'étais parti. This is exactly the same thing as when you've got your I have spoken, I had spoken, j'ai parlé, j'avais parlé, and all you're going to do is be turning your middle verb into the imperfect, which will give the whole thing the plus que parfait, the plus perfect. So I had gone, j'étais allé, as opposed to je suis allé. So that is when you are quite comfortable jumping around between je suis, tu es, il est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont. Now, one other note on that before we move on. If I gave you George has spoken, Georges a parlé, most of you are comfortable using a, and those of you who are more comfortable, and you should be, so George and Mildred have spoken. Let's give it a proper name. Luke and Craig have spoken. Luke et Craig ont parlé. Okay, so you've got to be comfortable going to the have. It won't always be ils ont or il a, it'll be a name. Or names. The same with the verb to be in the past. Yeah? He went, il est. Yeah? Luke went, Luc est. Yeah? George went, Georges est. They went, ils sont allés. Okay? Or ils sont venus, they came. Luke and Craig came. Luke et Craig sont venus. Okay? So we've got to be comfortable going into a and sont as much as you want, as much as you do with the have. Okay? That's really important. So that is something to practice. So practice saying they. Think of plural people. So my friends arrived. So just find yourself going, mes amis sont arrivés. You must be able to find the a and the sont out of nowhere. Great. So moving straight on. What then causes the problem is that in your mind you think all of those verbs use être. Whenever I go in the either the past, but don't forget we have other tenses that will use the be in the middle. Je suis allé, je suis venu. I had come, j'étais venu. I will have come, je serais venu. I would have come, je serais venu, with an AIS. So the fact is that be is not going to change. It will always be be. So in your mind, those are verbs that take be. Great, and so they should be. No pun intended. So why are we now in a mess when we use the reflexive verbs in the past? Now we've learnt this system. So the reflexive verbs in the past are verbs that you are choosing to do to yourself, or someone is choosing to do to himself, or she's choosing to do to herself, etc. Okay? Or reciprocally, so we are speaking to each other, you plural are speaking to each other, they are speaking to each other. Okay? So you need to be plural for those ones. So it's reflexive or reciprocal. Yes, some people doing the same thing to themselves, or some people doing the same thing to good God. The same thing to each other. Okay? So, for this method, they are verbs, and this is the crucial thing, that don't normally take be. That is what is getting everybody confused. If you said I went, it will always be je suis allé. If you said I washed the car, j'ai lavé la voiture. It's a normal verb. You are using it actively and transitively. That means onto another object. You are washing the car. So I washed the car, j'ai lavé. I spoke with Luke. J'ai parlé avec Luke. I spoke to him. Je lui ai parlé. It's gonna be using have. Now, when these verbs are used reflexively or reciprocally, that is when you are going to have the be kick in. So I said, j'ai dit. I said to myself, je me suis dit. Yeah? So we've done this method before. The poetry past is when, if you know you've got a verb which is going into the action past, okay, into the, I spoke, but you are doing it to yourself. So instead of going, right, I need I, then I need a myself, then I need the verb, oh, it's got to be the verb to be this time because it's in the past. No, you just remember the patterns. Je me suis, tu t'es, not tu te, that's the present. Il s'est, not il se, that's the present. So T-U-T apostrophe E-S. I shall write these underneath as per normal. Il s'est, I-L-S apostrophe E-S-T. I-L, new word, S apostrophe E-S-T. Nous, nous sommes, vous, vous êtes, ils se sont. And then you're just going to stick your password on the end. So I got washed, je me suis lavé. Yeah? I didn't get washed, je me suis pas lavé. So it's still going to be this little poetry together. So as I call this method, the poetry in the past. But what your minds get confused with is you think I spoke to myself. So you go, j'ai parlé, and then you're in the mess. So you need to think before you speak that we're going to be doing these reflexively. Okay? So let's do a few. We got washed, nous sommes lavés. Nous sommes lavés, or on s'est lavé. Yeah? Because we can use on s'est the same as we can use il s'est. You said to yourself, tu t'es dit. Yeah? You said to Luke, tu as dit à Luke, but you said to yourself, tu t'es dit. So it's going to use the verb to be. So to remind you that these verbs don't use be normally. Now when you learn reflexives, you always tend to learn, you know, and I'm not knocking that, I am a little bit. You always tend to learn the verbs which are getting ready in the morning. You know, I get up, je me lève. I shave, je me rase, something I need to do. I get ready, je me prépare. I wash, je me lave. Yeah, okay, these are all verbs that you will use in a kind of, because they're stuff you do to yourself. But remember, you know, these could be verbs that you use all the time. So I examine, you know, a lady needs to examine herself, yeah, to make sure she's safe. She does a breast check, so, you know, she examines herself. Elle s'examine, elle s'est examinée. She examined herself. The ladies examine themselves. Les femmes se sont examinées. Very important, and men too. So you know, this is something. These verbs are normal verbs. They're not a go down, go out. You know. So before we move on from those two, no, we'll do one other thing. So if you then remember that some phrases you can do in different ways. So for example, you can say, I am worried. You can have I am and then the adjective worried. Je suis inquiet, I-N-Q-U-I-E-T. Or you can have je m'inquiète, I worry myself. Okay? I am annoyed. Je suis énervé. I'm annoying myself, je m'énerve. Yeah, I'm bored, je m'ennuie. Yeah, rather than je suis bored kind of thing, okay, that we will use, okay? So the point is with these, that is different, isn't it? That is an adjective. That is an adjective that you are saying, I am, and then an adjective, a description. Now it might be an adjective from the verb. Yeah, bored is from the verb to bore. Tire is from the verb to tire. Yeah? But, you know, so I am tired, je suis fatigué, okay? So, next thing to think of with that in mind, when you come to translate was, and some of you, this is endlessly beneath you, and others amongst you, you speak brilliantly, but this keeps happening. If I gave you, I was happy, and I was talking, or I was tired, let's do that. So it's an I was, and then an adjective, okay? Tired is a verb, yes. So your mind thinks, right, tired. But the fact is, although to be honest it goes the opposite way around, there are times when you say I am, I was, plus an adjective. So je suis or j'étais. And there are times when you are using a verb. So I was speaking is je parlais. And what I keep hearing is I was, j'étais. You jump straight away into j'étais, and then you think speaking, parlant or something, or parler I'll hear, okay? But the fact is, how many words do we have in the wishy-washy, in the imperfect? We have two. We don't have room to translate the be. We don't have room for it. Same as in the present tense. I am talking. We don't have room for the am. We just say je parle. So a nice little trick to remember is if you hear another verb with ing on the end after the was, translate that verb. I was dancing. Je dansais. I was here. There's no other verb. J'étais ici. So you can use the ing trick. The other trick is to use if you imagine it in the present tense. Somehow people manage this in the present tense, but not in the imperfect. So I was ready. Sorry, I am ready. Je suis prêt. Or prête for a girl. I was ready. J'étais prêt. Because it's je suis prêt, j'étais prêt. Okay, so you'll know that we're doing that. I was, let's take a verb. I was exhausted. So épuisé, épuisé is the verb to exhaust, okay?